So let's wait a couple more minutes, everyone. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our third live member-only briefing on the state of education. I want to welcome you, and I welcome our Philly Sharp members and our members from our affiliate partners. We are excited to be able to continue on this program and give you information that will help get ourselves out of the functional areas and really focus on what's going on in the world around us that actually will affect our organizations as well as our profession. So my name is Dr. Joanna Vasquez. People call me Dr. Joe. I am I'm the current Philly Sherm president. And again, welcome everyone. And just to make sure that we mention our partners for our event, Tri-State, HRMA, Sherm-Berks County, Greater Valley Forge, Human Resources Association, HRP of CPA, and Sherm-Lehigh Valley. Thank you again for partnering with us, and welcome members of our affiliates. Just in terms of a reminder, it's quickly coming up. I can't believe it's going to be less than 6 weeks. We have our 2026 symposium at the Hilton, Philadelphia City Avenue, and it's going to be one of the biggest events when it comes to credits and speakers and just being around the people that being around where our people are. One of the things too, before just to kind of mention, is that each affiliate partner has a discount code for joining the symposium. So make sure you go back to your membership or events planner or even the president to get that discount code for the symposium. And we have 10 recertification credits that have been approved. It's a great value, and you don't have to go out of town in order to get all these credits. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Gaetan Giannini, the Vice President of Graduate and Adult Education at Alvernia. And we've known each other for years, and he is a great resource when it comes to what's going on in higher education in our great state. And without further ado, Gaetan, would you go and let's get started?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Joe, and to Philly Sherm and all the affiliates. I want to share my screen here. Let me know if I have got it there. Everybody see that okay?
Yes.
At the full screen. Okay. Well, again, thank you, Dr. Joe, and thank you to Philly Sherman, the affiliates. It's great to be with you today to talk about higher education and how it affects HR. Even though I'm an academic, I'm going to try to stay to the spirit of the HR briefing and make it more of a hands-on talk. I want to talk a little bit about the intersection of HR and higher education, and talk about things like talent shortages and skills gap and the retention pressures that we're all under. Even in higher ed, we feel those pressures in employee retention. Again, even though I am an academic, or at least an academic administrator, I really spent a lot of my career thinking more as a workforce partner, because education and the workforce are so tightly intertwined. So hopefully you'll see some parallels in what you're doing to what we're talking about here, and I want to give you some takeaways at the end of all of this. There we go. Okay, so why higher education matters to HR? Higher education is really embedded in the talent strategy. Really, it's not something that's adjacent to talent strategy. It is really important on how HR professionals do their job. It's really a marker when we're looking at entry level positions, but also in upskilling and building our leadership development. We really need to work hand in hand to make sure that the workforce is in the shape that we need it in. And it's also really important that the HR leaders of today start to take a proactive role with higher education. It's not really the old model anymore where somebody comes in with the degree. Degree is a marker of future success, and that degree carries them through. HR professionals and their workforce need to be working together in conjunction with higher ed to make the workforce work. Um, Higher education is under a lot of pressure these days, right? Those of us from the Metro Philadelphia area have seen the loss of two very tried and true colleges and universities over the last couple of years, and that is something that is concerning. But it's also a marker, right? It's telling us that we've got to look at things a little bit differently. So higher education, we're seeing the decline in traditional population. There are literally fewer 18 to 22-year-olds in the United States these days than there were in the past. So we've got to adapt. So we're doing that, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're doing that. This is also coming during a time where the cost of delivering higher education are going up. Higher education is a very personnel intensive business. And we're also seeing a lot of scrutiny from employers, and the employers are starting to demand an ROI for the money that they're paying to have their employees educated. So the HR folks that we're talking to, including the group here today, are demanding more relevance from us, meaning that our programs need to be tied to the workforce, and we've got to do them fast, and we've got to be flexible. Um, so what does that mean? The way we've been adapting, certainly here at Alvernia, but the schools that are going to be successful moving into the future are understanding the adult worker or folks that I'll call the workforce learners, right? The folks that are in higher education or educating themselves in some manner for specific skills that are going to lead to some kind of job outcome, right? So it's going to be getting a job in the first place or moving up. And a lot of times these folks are supported by their employers, right? A lot of you out there have tuition reimbursement programs, and those things are going to be important moving forward. But we're going to need to take a look at, actually how we put those together, right? Again, the traditional age students are not the growth market. There are 40 million people roughly in the United States that have some college credit but no degree, right? And when we talk about the student loan crisis or the student debt crisis, these are the people who are most exposed to that, right? They have some debt, but they don't have the skills, they don't have the credentials to bolster their earnings. So that's something that's super important. We're also looking at programs that are aligned with and around working professionals and career outcomes. If we don't have this for this market these days, the college or university is just not going to be able to be efficient and productive. And again, we've got to look at this as a partnership. So workforce needs versus academic pipelines, right? When we talk about higher education, it's not unusual for people to talk about, well, higher education institutions move like aircraft carriers or icebergs or those sorts of things. And for many years and for many schools, that was true. But that's not the reality of today. We know that employers, that especially HR professionals, you guys work in timescales of months, if not weeks, and years and semesters and academic cycles just isn't fast enough anymore. We also recognize that a degree alone is not enough. The world is changing. We'll talk in a second a little bit about AI, but learning something, when you're 22 years old is not going to carry you through your entire career. So we've got to think about different ways to do that. And it's important that the educators and the employers work together to do that. And we talk here about stackable and modular learning, and I'll unpack that for you just a little bit. So we talk a lot about these things called micro credentials now. So there are the things that colleges and universities are traditionally good at, but we're looking at breaking these things down into smaller chunks that are very targeted to certain types of skills. And oftentimes, and more often, we're working with employers to make sure that those skills are there, that those competencies are there, to make sure somebody coming out of a program has the skills that you need. But we're also very conscious that these shorter things that we're doing called micro credentials, sometimes we call them badges, can stack into larger certificates or overall degrees. So we do a bunch of badges that lead into a certificate. And the certificates, if you put them all together, will become a degree like an MBA or a business degree. And we think it's very important that we're able to really complete that circle, right? Short-term skill building things, but that ultimately people can bring into that larger credential that we call a degree. The other, I guess it's an elephant in the room, maybe not so much, is AI, right? We talk about AI a lot. It's in the news. The adoption of AI has been the fastest technology adoption that we've seen in the history of mankind. It is moving at lightning speeds, and we as educators and we as employers are really scrambling to keep up. And I think it's going to keep up at a pace, at this kind of pace for several years to come. And we're going to see it fragment, we're going to see it grow, but it's really important that we have an understanding of that. So higher education institutions and employers need to make sure that we understand AI and how it's going to work, how it's going to replace some roles, how it's going to augment some roles. And we need to focus now more on those critical thinking skills, digital literacy, and things like ethics, so people can manage this large chunk of information that we have. It's no longer going to be about acquiring information. It's going to be really about managing the information that we have on our fingertips, and there's a lot out there. And the other thing is, how do we manage that human AI interface? Right? Asking the right questions of AI, designing AI so it works for our business and our application specifically. Very important topic and something that's evolving every day. So, what does this mean for HR? As you likely already know, we've got to be continuously upskilling our workforce. It's more important now than it ever has been. And organizations, many organizations at least, are running on a lean budget. So, if organizations and higher education institutions can work together, it can really help us get this done. But it also means being agile. So the employers demand agility, and higher education institutions need to be able to do that, right? It's not a static credential anymore. It's an arc of learning during the course of somebody's career. And the forward-thinking universities and colleges are going to be doing this. They're going to be partnering with you to develop talent and understand what that looks like. So, what does that look like? Um, Employers and colleges and universities need to work together. If you can't find a college out there that's doing this, it's a college that's likely going to be in trouble in the next few years. But fortunately, many colleges, especially in the Metro Philadelphia area, Lehigh Valley, are adapting to this. So we're in a good environment for higher education. So that is definitely an upside. But we've got to continue to partner, and I'm going to implore you as HR professionals to work with the universities to make sure that you're customizing your training. Many colleges and universities now have arms that will do non-credit education to help you meet certain needs and certain skills in your employment base. And that is certainly something that is valuable, and more schools are moving into that every day. Those type of custom trainings really should be stackable into those degrees. The other thing as HR professionals we need to be thinking about is aligning tuition assistance programs with the needs of the organizations and working with the colleges and universities to make sure that that works out for them. So it's not just the program where we have tuition reimbursement, we give you $2,500 or $5,000 or whatever your number is per year and go get that degree, and that's all we're looking at. It's really about designing them, those initiatives better for the employees and working with higher ed to make sure that those needs are being met, right? So we're talking about actually co-designing these credentials and these pathways. So get involved with the colleges and universities. They should be talking to you on how this gets done. We recognize the importance of these workforce learners now, and we really want to reach out and work with all of you on designing these pathways that make sense for you and your employees. The other thing that we're doing and looking at, and that's relevant to HR professionals, is we're starting to look more at competencies, right? Not just that credential, that's a degree. What are the individual skills that need to be learned, right? So this is really taking the time out and putting the competency in. So right now, somebody goes to school for a semester. The semester's 7 weeks long, or it's 14 weeks long. And that at the end of that term, you're going to learn what you learned about that particular subject and you move on to the next. With competency-based learning, we're doing it a little bit differently. We're going to ask you to focus on a particular competency. And if it takes you 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years to be proficient in that competency, that's how long it's going to take you to get there. It lets people work at their own pace and gives them more flexibility. And it also makes education more doable for people to be able to work at their own pace. People are very busy, their work lives are busy, family lives are busier than ever, so it's really important. And when we look at those competencies, that really helps us in higher education line up what we're offering to the needs of your workforce, right? So I know when we talk to companies, different companies are going to need different things. So we align those competencies with what they need, and then in more cases than not, we're able to align those with some type of degree or certificate that we offer, so people do get the skills and they get a credential. So, how is higher ed responding? Again, the forward looking and forward thinking colleges, universities are thinking more about competency-based education, as I just explained, and also doing more in the prior learning assessment field, right? So, that's looking at a person's life experience and giving them credit for something they already know how to do without forcing them to take a class. Sometimes this is in form of a challenge exam to make sure that they have some type of learning. Sometimes it's in portfolio assessment, seeing what somebody's done in their career and weighing that against the outcomes and a competency of a class. A lot of times there's military training or other types of corporate training that we can crosswalk. We want to be able to give adults credit for the things they already know. That's vitally important. And then we turn these things into certificates or badges for verified skills, right? We know you're able to do this when you come out of that. So that's something that's really crucial and an important evolution for higher education these days. Um, so what do HR leaders want? You guys all know this better than I do, but I hear this every day from our corporate partners. We want something that's fast, we want something that's transparent, and we want something that's outcomes based. We don't want to wait years and years for somebody to have the credentials to do their job better or to promote them or be a good leader or manager. We want to be able to do this more quickly. And those credentials that we do offer, they need to be tied to those job roles, those roles that they have, and we want to be able to see some return on investment, right? We're investing a lot of times tens of thousands of dollars in the education of employees. What are we as the employers getting back from that? So it's really important that we all work together to make sure that those programs are designed really, really soundly. So the opportunity ahead, right? So we're in a world of lifelong learning. We can't stop learning when we're in our early 20s and think that's going to carry us through. The world is just changing faster than that. So we have to take advantage of that. And the tools that we have, while they're in a flux, they're getting better and better and more available and easier to deliver. Um, but it's going to rely on that strong relationship between employers and the educational establishment. So we need to be out there. We spend a lot of time and a lot of energy doing this, and it's really important. And certainly as HR professionals, you can work with different organizations because different colleges and universities have different specialties. So I would encourage you to work with multiple organizations and think about the long-term arc again when you're building your talent pipelines and partnering with educational institutions. So the final thoughts for me is that the future of work and the future of learning are converging. They're coming together. If we look back a couple of decades, it was education first, then work. right now they're hand in hand. We are looking as education institutions of bringing more and more experiential work-based learning into the classroom. So students already know something and have already experienced something hands-on before they get to you. But then we've got to keep that up over time. As we said, AI is here, and there's going to be a next to AI, right? There's going to be something that we're talking about in 5 or 10 years that is, was spawned out of AI or something completely different. So we've got to continue to work, and employers and educators need to work together. And HR leaders are really the folks that can help shape that because you see your organizations from a horizontal viewpoint. You see all of the different points where you need extra training and extra skills, where you're having trouble finding the next group of leaders or finding new employees to begin with. So it's really important. Someone said to me recently that when higher education suffers, it's the HR leaders that see it first, and I really do believe that, and that's why it's really so important. So that was a final thought, but I wanted to give you something to kind of take away. Here's something that I think you can bring back to your roles, into your organizations, and it's really just a very simple five-step process. And in step one, I use the A word here, audit. But audit your current tuition assistance and learning spend. And many of you, I'm sure, are doing this, but take a look at it and think about it not only from a spending standpoint, but an outcome standpoint, right? So, and number two, identify those roles where the skill gaps are most urgent, right? And try to prioritize those. Some you need to have now, some may be important, but longer term. So take a look at what those skill gaps are, and they could be for line level workers that you're trying to get up into management. They could be for service workers. It could even be for executives. So prioritize those things. And then gauge a university to partner with to co-design these pathways. Again, like I said before, it doesn't have to be a single university because many employers have different specialties of employees, so you're going to want to match those things. But have those conversations, and I'm sure you'll have my contact information. If anybody wants to talk about those things, reach out to me. I'm happy to have that discussion, whether you're using Alvernia or not. I think it's an important conversation to be in. And then, make sure you're shifting from that one time, get the credential and you're good, sort of outlook for educating your employees to what does this look like over time? What's your arc of education, right? We talk about stackable learning, but that's really the different elements that you're going to have to experience over the course of your career to stay current and stay productive. And the last thing is to measure those outcomes. We work with a lot of businesses. Many of them do this well. Others don't do it at all. How is the education working out for you? Are you retaining more of those employees? Are you seeing those employees actually move up in the organization like you planned? And is it making your organization more ready for growth and succession? So those things are really, really important. And if I leave you with nothing else, I think these five steps are a great takeaway. So with that, I will hand it back to Dr. Joe.
Thank you, Gaten. I love the five steps. It was definitely a great takeaway. So we do have a couple of minutes if anyone wanted to ask a question. And please put it on the chat as I will review this last couple of slides. But please put it in the chat if you have a question, and use this opportunity. But I also like to take this opportunity to thank again to our partners. And they are, we really believe, Philly Sherm really believes that in order to kind of inform our not only our constituencies within our own membership, but our constituencies with our partners, that the information that is given for regarding the state of education, the state of the economy, and our legal, in terms of our legal briefing, it's important that we spread the word. So, and also, if you missed anything, for those who actually have attended this session, you will receive a link to the video, and it'll be on for about a week. So just in case. There's a post-event survey, so remember to take your post-event survey, and that's when you get recertification credits. You will get credits for attending this briefing, and there'll be a certificate that comes out after our event. And again, thank you for joining us. And also, again, for those who are interested in joining the symposium, you will receive a discount as part of being one of our partners, members of our partner affiliates. So make sure that you reach out to them. I believe we do have a couple of questions. And I got one from Rachel. Are you currently working with some employers, and can you describe your process for co-designing and how long the process take? How long did that process take?
Yes. So yeah, yes, we are, and actually on several fronts. The process normally takes to get the program designed. Anywhere I would say from 1 or 2 weeks to maybe about 6 weeks before we can get started. And it can take different forms depending on the employer and the needs that they have. So normally what we do is we go in and we do a needs assessment. So what is it that your employees need to have at the end of all this? In some instances, it's really been, look, we've got a bunch of line workers that we really think highly of. They've done great in their jobs, but we require them to have a bachelor's degree to move up. We need you to get them to a bachelor's degree. So we'll talk about the different things that we've got to make sure. So if it's a business degree, that if they want certain types of content within that business degree, we'll design it in that fashion and make sure they've got all of those outcomes. And then we need to do some work around staging. Some people may come in with degrees from a community college or another degree. So that one's kind of a fast track one. With others, we've designed non-credit programs for them that have taken probably a few weeks to design, but perhaps even a year to get the people through. And we've done large groups, 150 to 300 individuals in getting non-credit training done. After that non-credit piece has been finished, we'll jump in and say, all right, what's the next step? And they'll say, all right, you educated 300 people in these basics that we need them to know, but we've got 50 who really need to go on and get a certain credential degree, that sort of thing. Some of these things end up in the MBA world, some of them in business, and then some of the other types of programs that we might have in data analysis or AI or computer science or even things in healthcare. So long question. It depends. We can get that moving pretty quickly, however.
And we have like one final question because I know we're getting to the end. From Amber, she said, for a software product organization, what are the most effective ways to engage universities through curriculum input, project partnerships, or career programs or internships to ensure a steady pipeline of graduates with relevant engineering and product skills?
Yes. So big question. So
Big question.
I would say all of the above. If you can engage um, a college or university that has students that are going to do internships or project-based work. We have the Opaque Institute here where students, it's not an they work on individual projects, not sort of a time constrained internship. But in Philadelphia, we've got schools like Drexel that do a fantastic internship program. So I would engage those students there, but also don't forget those adult workers, and that's something we need to design specifically for them. Look to your existing talent pipeline for when we move people up. I think that's a really good way to engage those adult workers.
Well, that will have to wrap us up. You guys right at 12:30. So thank you so much, Gaten.
My pleasure.
I'm seeing all the thank yous and that it was informative session. And again, we will share your contact information as well. So
Yep, I
again,
appreciate
thank
that.
you everyone for joining us. And our next briefing will be another economic briefing that will be on April 1st. So stay tuned into all of your event pages, and we are excited to have our fourth economic briefing. So, as a member briefing. So, thank you again and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.